During a live stream, aespa's Ningning was asked by a fan about her weight. She replied that she was 55 kg, and the staff laughed, saying, "Never." This response is problematic because 55 kg is a completely normal and healthy weight for someone of her age, depending on height and body composition. Her being underweight or not doesn't invalidate this fact. Yet the reaction implies that this weight is somehow too much, which is both misleading and damaging. The real issue for me is the message laughing sends to fans, many of whom are young and impressionable. Idols have a significant impact on their fans, and reactions like this can be harmful. They often internalize what idols say or how they react, especially regarding appearance. For many fans, seeing an idol laugh at a completely normal weight can reinforce dangerous thought patterns. I must be thinner, I'm too fat, or I'm not good enough unless I look like this. This is a direct consequence of the pervasive beauty standards in K-pop and broader entertainment culture. This trend falls under celebrity worship and internalization, which I will talk about later on, but this is where fans idolize celebrities through one-sided parasocial relationships. Fans often internalize these ideals as aspirational, even if they are unrealistic or harmful for the average person. Also, this kind of messaging can exacerbate body dysmorphia and insecurity. For someone struggling with body image issues, seeing a public figure dismiss a normal weight as too much can have a lasting negative effect. The problem also ties into the normalization of unhealthy standards in the entertainment industry. There is a relentless push for idols to maintain an unrealistic beauty standard, which distorts public perceptions of what a healthy body actually looks like. We've seen this trend reflected in idols becoming thinner over time, influencers shaming anyone who doesn't fit a certain body type, celebrities removing implants and taking extreme measures to adhere to these narrow standards. This creates a toxic culture where people feel societal worth is directly tied to being skinny, which is dangerous, especially for young fans who idolize these idols and influencers. To be clear, Ningning is an adult. Arguments like she didn't know better or she's clearly sick miss the point. A grown adult is capable of understanding the impact of their actions. While her health might be a concern, that doesn't exempt her from accountability. Laughing at her own weight on a live stream, regardless of intent, was irresponsible because of the message it sends to millions of viewers. Even if Ningning later attempted to clarify the video, the initial reaction, laughing and saying never, will remain problematic. Whether it was a misunderstanding or an offhand joke, the choice to react that way publicly was harmful. It's a stark reminder that celebrities' words and actions, especially regarding appearance and weight, carry real consequences for fans navigating body image issues. I'm genuinely sick and tired of seeing people say, "OMG, sexist," about this situation. Yes, other idols lose weight, but other idols didn't laugh at 55 kilo, and this is not the same thing. Right now, some people are trying to spin this as stop body shaming Ningning, which I don't doubt she faces. But the problem isn't random strangers online. The call is coming from inside the house. Some of you are even dragging ENHYPEN's Jungwon, saying, "OMG, double standard." That's exactly why I included this in my Pet Peeves video. Check it out if you haven't. Jungwon is losing weight, likely because he's overworked or shedding baby fat. He didn't laugh at a number, he lost weight quietly. No one's mocking him. Stop acting like these situations are equivalent just because you want everything to be misogyny. Ningning laughing isn't some harmless gag. Yes, people shouldn't body shame her or spread hate about her posts, that's obvious. But acting like people are misunderstanding what happened is pure gaslighting. It's using a fabricated double standard to make someone feel insane for calling out what actually happened. I am not 12 and I am not stupid. I literally blocked a creator and a user who were acting like, "She didn't do anything, she just told people her weight." No, stop corrupting my feed with this nonsense. Ningning laughing isn't some harmless gag. And seriously, what exactly was taken out of context? The "my poor baby" narrative is infantilizing her. Ningning is 23, turning 24 this year. If someone younger than her can understand that laughing at 55 key is inappropriate, she should too. Stop treating idols like children. Stop acting like criticism is hating because she's a woman or hating aespa. This is not that. She laughed, and for some, the reason? People want to rewrite history and minimize the backlash. Even Ningning herself seems to be trying to act like she didn't laugh. You guys are being weird. I know exactly what happened, and no amount of gaslighting or infantilization will change it. If people are genuinely interested, I will make a video on the infantilization of idols and how this type of narrative affects both fans and the idols themselves. While I do think the industry has a growing issue, I want to focus on one of the biggest problems with celebrity worship is that people rarely think about the downsides. We see someone who is skinny and immediately think, if I looked like that, I would be happy with myself. But we rarely look beyond the surface. We don't stop to consider that the person we're idolizing might actually be struggling. Fans need to remember that celebrities are human beings. They function like normal people. They have insecurities, pressures, and personal struggles just like everyone else. But when it comes to celebrity culture, the conversation often stays at a surface level. People recognize that certain beauty standards can be harmful, but they don't always examine the deeper psychological impact. I read an article from Verywell Mind titled, "Why We Worship Celebrities and How It Impacts Our Well-Being." The article explores several aspects of worship, how it affects mental health, how people can become emotionally dependent on celebrities, and how admiration can sometimes turn into something more intense and unhealthy. One passage from the article in the section Celebrity Worship and Its Impact on Mental Health explains this particularly well. People at the intense personal level of celebrity worship score high for neuroticism, and those at the borderline pathological level score high for psychoticism, reflecting a tendency toward poor mental health in both groups. Celebrity worship has been associated with poor psychological health, including anxiety and depression, as well as anxiety in intimate relationships. Meanwhile, the intense personal and borderline pathological levels of celebrity worship have been linked to obsessive-compulsive behaviors. Studies have also shown that celebrity worship is associated with problematic eating behaviors and attitudes, and that celebrity worshipers are more likely to feel positively about cosmetic surgery. To me, this explains a lot about how fans interact with idols. People look up to them and almost place them on a pedestal. Fans focus on what they think they know, like seeing a thin idol and assuming that body represents happiness or success. What they don't see is the possibility that the idol may have been forced to lose weight, may receive intense criticism about their appearance, and may struggle with food or mental health as a result of those pressures. And as much as people want to drag Ningning in this situation, it's not hard to imagine that she herself may also be affected by the same industry standards. She works in an environment where extremely strict beauty expectations are normal. I'm not saying this as a fact. This is just my perspective. But it's possible that she has been conditioned to see those standards as normal. When you exist in an environment where extreme thinness is constantly praised, you might not even question why laughing at a realistic or average weight seems acceptable. The truth is, we probably can't change the industry overnight. The systems that pressure idols into unhealthy standards have existed for decades. But what fans can do is change how they view celebrities. We can remind ourselves that these people are not perfect, and many of them are not living the idealized lives that fans imagine. Comparing ourselves to them is unfair, not only to ourselves, but also to them. At the end of the day, your favorite celebrity is still a human being. They're not flawless, and they're definitely not immune to pressure, and their lives are often far more complicated than what we see on stage or online. And when you combine this kind of celebrity worship with an industry that already enforces strict body standards, the problem becomes much bigger. I read another article titled, "How Korea Defines Slim, The Unspoken Realities of Body Image Obsession," where the author Stella explores why Korea has such a strong cultural preference for thinness. The article looks at the cultural and historical factors that have shaped beauty standards in Korea. While this preference exists across Korean society, it becomes even more intensified within industries like K-pop, where idols are expected to embody an idealized image. Confucian roots, order, discipline, and modesty. The article explains that Confucianism, which has greatly shaped East Asian societies, including Korea, emphasizes values such as self-discipline, modesty, and social harmony. These ideals subtly influence how people perceive body aesthetics. A thin body is often associated with self-control and moral integrity, while being overweight may be viewed, consciously or subconsciously, as a sign of laziness or a lack of discipline. If thinness is culturally associated with discipline, control, and modesty, then maintaining a slim body can be interpreted as proof that someone is responsible and hardworking. In this way, body image becomes tied not only to appearance but also to perceived character. In the K-pop industry, these cultural ideas become especially important because idols are expected to represent perfection and self-control. Their image is carefully managed and constantly scrutinized by the public. Being extremely thin can therefore function as a visible symbol of discipline. It reinforces the idea that an idol works hard, maintains strict control over their lifestyle, and embodies the level of self-management expected from a public figure. As a result, thinness becomes part of the ideal idol image rather than simply a personal aesthetic preference. Historical associations with class and restraint. The article also highlights how historical conditions help shape modern beauty standards. Unlike parts of Western history where larger bodies were once associated with wealth and abundance, Korea's agricultural and Confucian society tended to value restraint. During periods marked by war, poverty, and hardship, moderation became an important virtue. In these contexts, being slim was often interpreted as a sign that someone was healthy, capable of working, and not indulging excessively. Overconsumption could be seen negatively, while moderation and self-control were viewed as admirable qualities. Over time, this mindset reinforced the cultural association that restraint equals virtue. Even though Korea is now a highly modern and developed society, remnants of these values still shape beauty standards today. When this cultural emphasis on moderation blends with modern ideals of beauty, it can translate into a preference for slimmer bodies that symbolize balance and discipline rather than excess. Within the K-pop industry, these ideas become amplified. Idols are expected to present a highly polished and controlled image, and companies often push them to embody this idealized restraint. As we've seen how tightly companies control idols' diets and constantly monitoring their food intake and weight. Maintaining a slim body becomes one way of visually communicating that sense of control and refinement that the industry values. Collectivist society and image consciousness. Another factor discussed in the article is Korea's collectivist social structure. In collectivist cultures, individual behavior and choices are often evaluated in relation to how they reflect on the group. Personal actions and appearances can be seen as representing one's family, school, workplace, or community. The concept of nunsi, the subtle skill of reading social cues and understanding unspoken expectations, plays an important role in everyday social interactions. Because of this, people are often highly aware of how they are perceived by others. When appearance is viewed through this social lens, it becomes more than just a personal matter. How someone looks can influence how they and their groups are perceived. For idols, this pressure becomes even stronger. They are not only individuals, but also representatives of their group, their company, and to some extent, the Korean entertainment industry as a whole. Because of this, agencies often push idols to conform to very narrow beauty standards that align with what the public expects. This pressure is not a far-fetched idea when you consider how vocal Korean netizens can be about idols' appearances, particularly their weight. Public commentary and scrutiny can be intense, reinforcing the expectation that idols must maintain a certain image. The cycle of beauty standards. What becomes interesting is the cycle that develops from these cultural and industry expectations. Being slim is already an ideal within broader Korean society, but in the entertainment industry, that ideal becomes even more extreme. Idols are expected to embody the most perfected version of the cultural beauty standard. At the same time, celebrities strongly influence public perception. When idols consistently present extremely thin body types as the standard, non-celebrities may begin to feel pressure to match those appearances. This creates a feedback loop. Society values thinness. The entertainment industry exaggerates that ideal through idols, and the public then internalizes and reinforces those heightened standards. In this way, the K-pop industry did not create the cultural preference for thinness. Instead, it inherited long-standing ideas about discipline, restraint, and social image. However, because of the visual and commercial nature of the entertainment industry, those ideas become pushed to an extreme. Rather than simply being slim, idols are often expected to be extremely thin. This is partly because the industry rewards visuals that stand out and photograph well. In a highly visual culture where idols are constantly filmed, photographed, and promoted through media, Appearance becomes a central part of how they are marketed. At its core, the preference for thinness in K-pop reflects a combination of cultural history, social expectations, and industry practices. Cultural values may have laid the foundation for the ideal, but the entertainment industry has amplified it into something far more rigid and demanding. This shift toward extreme thinness isn't just happening in K-pop. Across fashion and celebrity culture, thinness is becoming the dominant beauty ideal again. An article titled "The Four Horsemen of the Skinny Apocalypse: Why Thin Is In Again" even argues that several cultural forces are pushing society back toward ultra-thin standards. However, being skinny has always been a central expectation in K-pop.
Like this far family member kind of recommended me to that guy. And then I went and auditioned. I actually didn't get in at the first
Oh, you didn't?
because they told me to go and lose weight. So
How
I
dare
lost
they?
7 kilograms.
Oh, wow.
And then I went back and then I got in.
And then you got in.
Wasn't even skinny.
Oh, really?
I was skinny,
Right.
scary skinny. But they like that.
Idols are frequently put on extreme diets to lose weight, and the way they casually talk about it like it's no big deal makes it seem almost normal. But it's far from harmless. Companies pressure idols to lose weight regardless of how thin they already are, creating an environment where being underweight is treated as standard rather than alarming. A clear example is Momo, who has openly discussed the extreme measures she had to take to maintain her weight. Jihyo, during 16, was criticized and fat-shamed even while doing a photo shoot, highlighting how relentless this scrutiny can be. K-pop companies often enforce ideal weights, using them almost like a form of discipline. Eating snacks or gaining even a small amount of weight can lead to punishment or criticism. Weight becomes an evaluation metric during monthly assessments, which should ideally focus on skills, talent, or stage performance. Instead, body size becomes a measure of worth. This normalization of unhealthy standards is disturbing because it's treated as discipline, dedication, or even a badge of effort, rather than the harmful obsession it truly is. The obsession with weight isn't just about beauty standards or appealing to fans, it runs deeper. Companies embed it into idols' profiles, which almost always include height and weight. Fans reinforce this by making videos like Idol X's Weight or tutorials on how to get a waist like Y Idol, treating extreme thinness as a sign of commitment or discipline rather than a concerning health issue. Idols themselves often internalize this, seeing their weight as proof of dedication. This culture sends a dangerous message that your worth as an idol, and by extension as a person, is tied to your ability to conform to extreme physical standards. It's worrying because it's systemic, normalized by companies, idol behavior, and fan culture alike, creating a cycle that glorifies unhealthy bodies and punishes natural, healthy variation. Fans are a huge part of the problem when it comes to body image issues in K-pop. Many idols, including Yeon, Jennie, Jiwoo, Liz, Wonyoung, Lisa, Natty, Yeri, Wendy, Jonghyun, Joy, Tsuyu, Jihyo, and countless others, get criticized constantly for being too skinny or too big. A recent example is Tsuyu, who faced comments about her thighs being too large. From what I can tell, she's completely healthy, but fans still feel entitled to comment on her body as if it's public property. Twice members have lost so much weight over time that when you look at cases like IVE, it raises genuine concern. Jennie is repeatedly fat-shamed, and even when she's a healthy weight, criticism doesn't stop. Meanwhile, IVE members are getting skinny-shamed, showing that no matter what a person's body looks like, fans seem determined to find something wrong. It's confusing and frustrating. Fans claim to care, but the reality is that they often shame idols regardless of size. They blame companies. And yes, companies are part of the problem, but fans can't wash their hands of responsibility. By scrutinizing every detail, the thighs, the waist, the arms, comparing idols to each other, making jokes about weight gain or loss, fans perpetuate the same toxic standards that the industry enforces. This isn't just harmless commentary. It contributes directly to the pressure idols face and reinforces harmful societal ideals. Until fans stop treating idols' bodies as public property, idol culture will continue to glorify unhealthy extremes and punish natural, healthy variation. The obsession with weight isn't just in agencies. It's a cycle sustained by fans who police and judge idols at every turn. This combination of industry pressure and fan reinforcement creates a culture where extreme thinness is expected and normalized. Aside from comments, fans also contribute to the problem through seemingly positive ones. Phrases like body goals, body T, or waistline is insane are often directed at idols when they lose weight. Examples include Kim Chaewon, Ayeon, Dahyun, and many others. On the surface, these comments may seem like admiration or praise, but they reinforce a dangerous idea. Smaller bodies are better. This is why it's unsurprising that people can become so obsessed with these standards. Praise is constantly attached to shrinking bodies. The moment someone doesn't meet this ideal, the narrative can shift from admiration to disgust, with comments like, "Ew, a skeleton." This is part of why I take issue with public commentary on idols' bodies. First, it reduces idols to their physical appearance, stripping away their identity and accomplishments. Second, fans rarely, if ever, know what an idol has gone through to achieve that body. Intentional or extreme weight loss is often framed as a sign of health or success, but this framing is misleading and dangerous. It fuels a culture where thinness is equated with personal worth, overlooking the potential harm, including the risk of eating disorders. For idols, compliments on weight loss can actually be harmful. Positive reinforcement, even if well-intentioned, can validate extreme dieting or unhealthy behaviors, sending the message, "I need to lose more because this is what people want." Many idols who undergo dramatic weight changes do so under encouragement from fans, or at least under the illusion of encouragement. Comments about their bodies, whether praise or criticism, can worsen these behaviors rather than improve them. Essentially, fans are perpetuating unrealistic standards. By constantly highlighting weight, idol bodies, and thinness as a measure of value, society reinforces a narrow ideal of beauty. Idols and fans alike begin to see these unrealistic, often digitally altered standards as normal, judging themselves and others against them. This cycle of praise, scrutiny, and comparison contributes directly to body dissatisfaction, mental health struggles, and the normalization of unhealthy behaviors. Perhaps the clearest sign that curvy bodies were out was when the very women who made them famous, the Kardashians, suddenly sported smaller physiques. This pivot away from their once signature look sent a clear message. Exaggerated hourglass figures were no longer the gold standard. This shift was reinforced by other high-profile figures who once embraced curvier bodies but are now noticeably slimmer, subtly dictating a new beauty standard. Alongside this, an increasing number of women are opting for surgical reversals, removing their BBLs as the thick aesthetic loses its grip. This rapid reversal underscores a troubling reality. Women's bodies are treated like fashion trends, constantly subject to cultural whims. Like I said earlier, women are getting their BBLs removed. If you're on TikTok, YouTube, or Instagram, you've probably seen influencers and celebrities talking about getting removal surgeries. What I find interesting is that just when skinny starts trending again, suddenly everyone regrets the work they had done. To me, that really shows the extreme nature of trend hopping and how willing people are to literally reshape their bodies just to fit whatever the current beauty standard is. And like I mentioned earlier in the article, the troubling part is that women's bodies are being treated like trends. They go in and out of fashion the same way clothing styles do. And honestly, we shouldn't be surprised when young fans absorb that message, because that is the message being sent. When public figures constantly modify their bodies to keep up with whatever aesthetic is popular at the moment, it reinforces the idea that your body is something you should update whenever the trend changes. What makes this especially alarming is how quickly that shift happened. Just a few years ago, being thick was the beauty standard, especially on Instagram, in music videos, and in celebrity culture. Curves, big hips, and fuller bodies were everywhere and constantly praised. Now, the same look that dominated the 2010s is suddenly being treated like it's outdated. The exact body type that people were encouraged to achieve just a few years ago is now quietly being abandoned as the industry pivots back to thinness. And that constant cycle, build the body, praise the body, then discard the body when trends change, is exactly why treating women's bodies like fashion trends is so harmful. Even though the article's conclusion is different from my perspective on why thinness has become the standard, I still recommend reading it because it offers valuable insight. Triggering EDS. One of the most overlooked triggers is something that seems harmless: compliments. A compliment on weight loss can unintentionally reinforce harmful behaviors. When someone is praised for losing weight, it can validate the methods they used to get there. Doesn't matter whether it's unhealthy or dangerous, which ties into internalized weight stigma. It reinforces the idea that smaller bodies are better, which can leave people, especially those in larger bodies, feeling inadequate, ashamed, or less than. Over time, it creates the pressure to maintain the weight. That praise doesn't just feel good, it becomes something you need to maintain or protect. And that leads to anxiety, stress, and even fear of gaining weight back. For many, this results in restrictive dieting and cycles of losing and regaining weight. It also distorts self-worth. When the main source of validation becomes appearance, people can start to believe they're only worthy when they look a certain way. And sometimes, the most dangerous part is that unhealthy methods get rewarded. Weight loss caused by extreme dieting, malnutrition, or even illness can still be praised. For idols specifically, they don't just have a busy schedule, they have a physically unsustainable one. We're talking about people who are often running on less than 5 hours of sleep, while also not eating enough to properly fuel their bodies. And that combination alone already creates serious problems. Sleep deprivation slows reaction time, weakens coordination, and reduces muscle recovery. So even before stepping on stage, their bodies are already struggling to keep up. Now add intense choreography, long rehearsals, and constant performances on top of that. It becomes clear that the standard expected of them doesn't match what the body can realistically handle. At the same time, not eating properly means there's no real energy source to compensate. That leads to low stamina, dizziness, and an increased risk of injury during performances. Their bodies are being pushed past their limits, and the effects aren't just short-term. Over time, this kind of lifestyle can lead to hormonal issues, weakened immunity, and long-term physical burnout. Even without bringing mental health into the conversation, the physical conditions alone already make this system unsustainable. And in the end, weight is not a full measure of health. Focusing only on thinness ignores mental well-being, nutrition, physical strength, and overall quality of life. The sad part is that many eating disorders don't start with self-destruction, but self-improvement. What I find particularly scary about this entire conversation is how normalized it has become to judge people based on their weight. We've reached a point where people are not only commenting on bodies, but actively policing what others can and cannot do because of their size. You see this with influencers who try to gatekeep things like Pilates classes, certain clothing stores, or even gyms, implying that those spaces are only meant for thin bodies. But this mindset has also made its way into fandom culture. Fans have started policing idols' bodies as if being thin is a requirement for being an idol. It creates this unspoken rule that someone has to look a certain way in order to deserve their career. There are several examples of this. Like I referenced, the situation where a fan paid Suyu to tell her to lose weight. In another case, SM Entertainment reportedly told Lena that she would need to lose weight in order to sign with them. And it doesn't stop there. The industry itself often reinforces these harmful standards. Some CEOs and creative directors openly criticize artists' appearances, going as far as calling them ugly or fat kids who lost their youthful charm. When that kind of rhetoric comes from the people in power, it sends a very clear message about what the industry values, and it's deeply concerning. At this point, the conversation around weight has become more than just beauty standards. It has turned into a system where bodies are constantly judged, controlled, and scrutinized, both by the industry and by the fans who consume it.